I'm 79 years old, and my husband has been gone for 6 years now. 6 years, and I still set 2 coffee cups out in the morning sometimes. I catch myself doing it. I stand there looking at both cups, and I think, who exactly did I think was coming? I've been sitting with something lately. A question I can't quite leave alone. I was lonely inside my marriage. For most of it. Not all of it, but most. And Harold, I loved him. I want to be clear about that. I think he was lonely too. We just lived alongside each other for so long that we forgot to actually reach each other. 2 people in the same house for 41 years, and somewhere in the middle of all those years, we just stopped finding each other. That's what I want to talk about, because I don't think we were unusual. I think a lot of people are living the way we lived, and they don't have a word for it yet. I was married at 24. Harold was 27. It was 1969. You didn't think too hard about whether you were compatible in the deeper sense. You thought about whether he was a good man, whether he'd be a good father, whether he worked hard. Harold was all of those things. He was a genuinely good man. I want to say that again because I don't want what I'm about to tell you to sound like a complaint about him. It isn't. The early years were busy in the way young years always are. We had our daughter Patrice in 1971, our son Thomas in 1974. I was teaching elementary school. Harold was working his way up at the county assessor's office. We had a house that needed things done to it constantly. We had parents who were aging. We had a life that was full, genuinely full, and we moved through it side by side. And I think we confused movement with closeness. When you're busy, you don't notice the quiet underneath. I remember, and this is so small, but it stayed with me, I remember sitting at the kitchen table one night in maybe 1983. The kids were in bed. Harold was watching the news in the other room. I had a cup of tea. And I had this thought, very clearly. I don't know what he's thinking about anymore. Not the news, not what he was watching. I mean, in general. What he was turning over in his mind. What worried him. What he wanted. I didn't know. And then I thought, does he know those things about me? I didn't do anything with that thought. I finished my tea and I went to bed. That's the part I can't get away from now. I just let it go. We weren't unhappy, exactly. That's the hard thing to explain. We weren't fighting. We weren't miserable. We were functional. We raised our children and they turned out well. We went on vacations. We celebrated anniversaries. We had a life that looked from the outside like exactly what a life was supposed to look like. But I would lie in bed at night and feel a kind of distance from the man beside me that I didn't know how to cross. And I think I decided, somewhere along the way, that this was just what marriage became. That the closeness of the beginning was a young person's thing. That this quieter, more parallel existence was maturity, was settledness. I told myself it was enough. If you're still with me, I want to stop for just a moment and ask you something, because I think about the people listening to me, and I wonder about your lives. Are you in a marriage or a long relationship, and does any of this feel familiar? Not the specifics, maybe, but that distance, that sense of living alongside someone instead of with them. I'd like to know. I read the comments when I can, and they keep me company more than I can tell you. If this is reaching you somewhere real, I'd be glad to know. And if you haven't already, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe. Not for any reason that matters to me professionally, I'm 79 years old, that ship has sailed, but because it means I can keep talking to you. And right now, talking to you is something I need. The children grew up and left, as they do, and then it was just Harold and me. And I think both of us expected that we would rediscover each other. That the busyness had been the barrier, and now we'd find our way back. But we didn't know how. We had become so accustomed to being useful to each other, the logistics of the house, the calendars, the grandchildren's birthdays, that we didn't know how to just be with each other without a task. I tried, sometimes. I'd ask him things. Real questions. What do you regret? What are you proud of? Are you happy? And he would look at me with something like surprise, and then he'd give me an answer that was true, but surface level, and I could feel him wanting to get back to comfortable ground. I don't blame him for that. I think he'd learned to stay on the surface the same way I had. We'd taught each other over decades what was safe to bring and what wasn't. The loneliness I felt wasn't dramatic. It wasn't the loneliness of abandonment. It was the loneliness of standing in a room with someone you love and feeling invisible to them, feeling like the version of yourself they saw was a very old photograph. Accurate once, not anymore. Harold had a stroke in 2015. He was 80 years old. He didn't die right away. He was with us for another 7 months, but he wasn't quite Harold anymore. He could speak a little toward the end. He knew who I was, but the conversations we never had, we were never going to have them now. I sat beside his bed in those months, and I thought about every question I hadn't asked. Every evening I'd chosen the television over sitting with him. Every time he'd tried to talk to me about something that mattered to him. I can think of specific times, and I had been tired or distracted, or I'd given half my attention and thought that was enough. There was one evening, maybe 15 years before he got sick. He came home from work and he was quiet in a different way than usual. Heavy. I asked what was wrong, and he said, "Nothing, just tired." And I accepted that. I didn't press. I made dinner. Later, I found out from his brother that Harold had been passed over for a promotion he'd wanted for years, that it had hurt him badly. He'd wanted to tell me. He just didn't know how to begin, and I hadn't made it easier. I carry that. What I know now, at 79, is that intimacy isn't something that just survives on its own. You have to keep making it. You have to keep being curious about the person you married, the way you were curious at the beginning when you didn't know them yet, because they keep changing. People keep changing all their lives, and if you stop being curious, you end up in the same room with a stranger you love. That's what we were toward the end. Strangers who loved each other, and that is its own kind of grief. I cannot have those conversations with Harold now. That's simply true. I can have them with myself, sitting here, which is what I'm doing, but the person they were meant for is gone. What I wish, and this is not instruction, it's just what I wish I had understood that being present isn't passive, that it takes something, that you have to actually turn toward a person, not just occupy the same space, but turn toward them, ask the question, sit with the answer. Let them be someone you're still discovering. I wish I had asked Harold what he dreamed about when he was young. I wish I had asked him what he was afraid of. I wish I had told him more often what I actually thought, not just what was easy to say. I wish we'd had fewer comfortable evenings and more honest ones. My daughter Patrice comes every Sunday now. She's a good daughter. She sits with me and we talk, and she has started asking me things, real questions, the way I should have asked her father. And I think she learns something from watching us. I think she's doing it differently in her own marriage. That matters to me. That feels like something. But I'm 79, and the person I was married to for 41 years is gone. And the life we could have had together, the deeper one, the one where we actually knew each other, that life is gone too. I'm not telling you this so you'll feel sorry for me. I don't need that. I'm telling you because the years move faster than you think they will, and the distance grows quieter than you think it will, and one day you'll be standing in your kitchen with 2 coffee cups, and you'll wonder how you got there. I don't know how much time I have left. Not much at my age. That's just mathematics. And I find in the time I have that I mostly think about the people I loved and the ways I didn't love them fully enough. Not because I was cruel, but because I was busy and tired, and I assumed there was more time. There is always less time than you think. That's all I wanted to say.